After 10 years away, I came home expecting family, but the people sitting at my family's table weren't my family anymore, and behind their smiles hid a secret worth killing for. My name is Madison Clark. I left my hometown of Pine Brook, Oregon 10 years ago and never looked back. I built a life for myself in San Francisco, far from the small town where everyone knew everyone else's business and my family's expectations suffocated me. But last month, out of the blue, I received an email from my mother, or at least the woman who claimed to be my mother. "Your father is very sick. Please come home. He wants to see you one last time." I stared at the email for a long time. My hands hovered over the keyboard, unsure what to type. We hadn't spoken in a decade, not since the night I left after our explosive fight about my life choices. They disapproved of my career, my independence, my decision not to marry young like my sister Jessica. But guilt is a powerful thing. It wears down anger like waves eroding stone. After a sleepless night, I packed a bag, left a message with my best friend Ryan Torres, and began the 8-hour drive north. The town looked the same as I remembered. Quaint houses with white picket fences, the local diner still flashing its outdated neon sign, the same rusty water tower standing guard over Pine Brook. The house on Pine Brook Lane stood unchanged. The porch light glowed softly. Fresh flowers lined the walkway. It was almost too perfect. I pulled into the driveway, heart pounding. The front door swung open before I even knocked. "Madison!" Helen, my mother, rushed out and hugged me tightly. She looked older, lines etched around her eyes, but her perfume was the same lavender scent from my childhood. Behind her stood Robert, my father, leaning heavily on a cane. His face was thinner, more fragile than I remembered. "We missed you so much," Helen whispered. For a moment, I let myself believe this was real. That time had healed old wounds. Inside, the dining table was set for dinner. Roasted chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes, my childhood favorites. Jessica sat at the table, her blonde hair in loose curls, smiling wide. "Maddie, it's been forever." I froze. Jessica never called me Maddie, not once. She always insisted on Madison. I brushed it off. Maybe she'd changed. People change. We ate dinner, making small talk. They asked about my job, my apartment, if I was seeing anyone. Typical family questions, but something felt rehearsed. My eyes drifted to the family photos lining the wall. There were recent pictures of Helen, Robert, and Jessica at Yellowstone, at Christmas, at Jessica's wedding, but I wasn't in a single one. The older photos were worse. Images I remembered, birthdays, vacations that had been altered. My face was replaced or blurred out, like I'd never existed. That night, as I lay in my childhood bedroom, I texted Ryan. "Something's wrong. They don't remember little things. Photos are different. Jessica called me Maddie." He replied instantly. "Could be nerves. Families get weird after a long time." "No," I typed back. "It's more than that." The next morning, I decided to clear my head. I drove into town, stopping at Cooper's Coffee, the same shop I'd frequented as a teenager. Mrs. Cooper, the owner, froze when she saw me. "Madison? What are you doing here?" "Visiting my family, the Clarks." Her face paled. "Honey, the Clarks moved away 5 years ago. That house has new owners." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I had dinner with them last night." "No, sweetheart. Your family sold that house. Everyone knows." I stumbled back to my car, mind racing. Panic clawed at my chest. Back at the house, I noticed more oddities. The dog, Buddy, who should have been long dead, was barking in the backyard. Except it wasn't Buddy. Just another golden retriever with similar markings. The garage held a car I didn't recognize. My father's old truck, which he loved, was gone. I needed proof. Concrete evidence. That night, after everyone went to bed, I crept into the study. I searched the desk drawers, file cabinets, anywhere documents might be hidden. In the bottom drawer, I found property records. The deed listed the owner as David Grant, not Robert Clark. My heart raced. Who was David Grant? I snapped photos of the documents and sent them to Ryan. "That's not your dad's name," he confirmed. The next day, pretending nothing was wrong, I told the family I wanted to take a walk alone. I drove straight to the county clerk's office. "Hi," I greeted the clerk. "I'm looking for property records for 421 Pinebrook Lane." She pulled up the file. "The current owners are David and Helen Grant, purchased 5 years ago." "Grant? Not Clark?" She frowned. "No Clarks have owned that house since 2015. My pulse roared in my ears. "Do you have records on the previous owners?" I asked. She nodded, typing quickly. "The Clarks, Robert and Helen. But there's a note here. They entered the witness protection program in 2015. I gripped the edge of the counter. "Witness protection?" "I can't say more," she said quietly. "That's all the public record shows." I stumbled out of the office, mind reeling. My real family had entered witness protection, which meant the people in that house were not my family. They were imposters, and they had a reason for luring me back. As the sun set over Pinebrook, a cold certainty settled over me. I wasn't just visiting home. I had walked into a trap. I left the county clerk's office with my heart pounding. The truth was undeniable now. My real family had vanished into the federal witness protection program years ago. The people living in our house, the people pretending to be my family, were strangers. Dangerous strangers. I texted Ryan. "They're imposters. My real family is gone. Long story. Need your help." His reply came fast. "I'll drive up tonight. Don't confront them. Play along." Play along? Easy to say. Hard to do when every smile at the dinner table felt like a threat. That night, back at the house, the imposters acted as if nothing had changed. Jessica asked if I wanted to go shopping tomorrow, like old times. Helen served apple pie, my childhood favorite. Robert, or whoever he was, talked about taking me fishing on the lake, just like when I was a kid. It was eerie. Every detail was just slightly wrong. Jessica's laugh was too soft. Helen's apple pie tasted different. Robert's fishing stories had holes in them. I forced a smile and played the dutiful daughter. Inside, fear gnawed at me. After dinner, I excused myself and went to my old bedroom. I locked the door, pulled out my laptop, and started searching. Who was David Grant? Public records showed David and Helen Grant had lived in 3 states over the past decade. No stable employment history, frequent address changes. Everything pointed to people running from something, or towards something. As I dug deeper, I found a news article from 5 years ago. Businessman David Grant accused of embezzlement, fraud, charges dropped after key witnesses disappeared. My stomach clenched. The witnesses. My father, Robert Clark, had testified against a company linked to money laundering and organized crime. That must have been why my family entered witness protection. And now, David Grant, the man who had faced charges in that case, was living in my family's house wearing my father's face. They weren't just strangers, they were predators. I called Ryan. "You need to get here, fast." "I'm already on the road, 5 hours out." "Bring a burner phone. Don't call or text once you're close. They might be monitoring signals." "Got it. Be safe." I ended the call and hid my laptop under the floorboard where I used to stash my diary as a teen. Then I lay awake all night, ears straining for any sound outside my door. At dawn, Helen knocked. "Maddie, want pancakes?" Pancakes, a normal offer, but I couldn't ignore the undercurrent of something sinister. "Be right out," I called. I got dressed, grabbed my phone, and slipped the burner phone Ryan had mailed me into my pocket. It had arrived yesterday, thankfully, before I learned the truth. At breakfast, Helen chatted about redecorating the living room. Jessica mentioned a friend's upcoming wedding. Robert, or David, asked about my work in San Francisco. All normal, all fake. I smiled. I laughed. I lied. "I'm thinking of staying a while," I said casually. "It's nice being back." Helen beamed. "We'd love that." Of course they would. Keeping me close meant keeping me under control. After breakfast, I told them I wanted to walk into town again. "See if the old bookstore's still open." "Take the car," Robert offered. "No, I need the fresh air." Outside, I kept my pace steady, my face calm. But inside, adrenaline surged. I walked to Cooper's coffee, where Mrs. Cooper waited nervously. "Madison," she whispered, "what's happening?" I checked. "The Grants have no kids. No daughter." "I know," I said. "Please. If anyone asks, you haven't seen me." She nodded, eyes wide with fear. I stepped into the alley behind the coffee shop and called Ryan from the burner phone. "Where are you?" I asked. "An hour out. I'll meet you behind Cooper's. Stay put." "I can't. They'll notice I'm gone." "Then play along a little longer. Tonight we'll figure this out." "Okay, but hurry." I returned to the house, making up a story about the bookstore being closed. Jessica suggested we watch a movie together. I agreed, even though my skin crawled at the thought of sitting between imposters. As the credits rolled, Helen reached for the remote and paused the screen. "Madison," she said softly, "we're so glad you're back. We were afraid you'd never forgive us." "For what?" I asked carefully. "For the past. For letting you go." She was testing me, fishing for details. I played dumb. "It's all water under the bridge." She smiled, but her eyes stayed sharp, calculating. That night, in my room, I pulled out my laptop and opened an encrypted note Ryan had sent earlier. "FBI contact ready. Special Agent Megan Price. She can confirm witness protection details. Be ready to move fast." A knock startled me. I shut the laptop and hid it quickly. "Come in." Jessica peeked inside. "Want to talk? Like old times." "I'm tired," I lied. "Big day tomorrow." She nodded, closing the door. I waited until midnight. Then, using the burner phone, I texted Ryan. "Change of plan. Let's meet at the abandoned mill. Safer." "Confirmed. See you at 2 a.m. I packed a bag with essentials and the laptop. My heart thundered as I crept downstairs. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like gunfire. At the front door, I paused. Helen's purse sat on the table. Her phone peeked out. On impulse, I grabbed it and opened the recent calls. A number repeated daily, labeled only as D, David, or someone else? I photographed the number and slipped out into the night. As I walked down the dark road toward the mill, headlights flashed behind me. Panic surged. Had they noticed I was gone? A car slowed beside me. The window rolled down. "Get in," Ryan whispered. I jumped in, slamming the door. "Drive." We sped off into the night, leaving the fake family and their perfect lies behind. "Did you bring the files?" Ryan asked. I nodded, clutching the laptop. "Everything." "Good. Let's meet Agent Price and end this." As we drove toward the next phase of our plan, I glanced back at the quiet street where my childhood home stood. It wasn't my home anymore. It hadn't been for years. And now, the people inside were about to learn they'd targeted the wrong woman. Ryan drove us toward a safe motel 2 towns over. The night was pitch black, headlights cutting through the darkness. Neither of us spoke for a while. The weight of what we had uncovered felt heavier than ever. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "I contacted Special Agent Megan Price while driving. She's waiting for us. You sure you have everything?" I nodded, holding the laptop tightly. "I've got the property records, fake IDs, and the phone number from Helen's contacts, plus the photos of the altered family pictures." "Good. We'll need all of it." We pulled into the motel's gravel parking lot. Inside, Agent Price waited in plain clothes, her badge ready but discreet. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Madison Clark?" she asked. "Yes." "I reviewed what Ryan sent me. Your instincts were right. The Grants, David and Helen, have been on our radar for years. They're connected to at least 3 fraud operations, but we had no idea they'd taken this step." "Replacing my family?" I said, my voice shaking. Price nodded grimly. "And luring you back. We believe they suspect your father kept evidence they never recovered." "He did," I whispered. "Before he and Mom disappeared, he gave me a USB drive. I hid it in my old diary. I haven't thought about it in years." Ryan glanced at me sharply. "Is it still there?" "I don't know. The diary was hidden under a loose floorboard in my old room." Agent Price leaned forward. "We need that USB. It could contain files that finally bring down their entire network. But if they realize you've figured them out, they'll escalate. Fast. My stomach clenched. So what's the plan? We set a trap, Price said. But first, we get the USB. The next evening, under cover of darkness, Ryan and I returned to Pine Brook. Price followed in an unmarked SUV with 2 other agents. We parked a block from the house. My pulse thundered in my ears as I crept toward my old bedroom window. Thankfully, it was unlocked. I slipped inside while Ryan and the agents kept watch. The room was exactly as I'd left it. Posters on the walls, the desk with my initials carved into the wood. I pulled back the rug and pried up the loose floorboard. My breath caught. The diary was still there. I flipped through the pages until I felt a hard bump inside the back cover. Tearing it open carefully, I found the USB drive taped inside. I texted Ryan. Got it. Heading out. But as I turned, the bedroom door creaked open. Helen stood there, shadows cloaking her face. Madison, she said softly. What are you doing? I froze. My mind raced. Just reminiscing, I lied. I couldn't sleep. Her eyes flicked to the diary in my hands. That's an old book. Yeah, full of memories. She stepped closer. You shouldn't sneak around, dear. It's not safe. Behind her, I saw Robert, or David, approaching. I swallowed hard. I was about to come back downstairs. Helen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course. Let's all sit down. As a family. Downstairs, Jessica waited at the dining table. 3 glasses of wine were already poured. Sit, Robert ordered. I obeyed, clutching the diary under the table. Helen leaned forward. We know you've been asking questions, talking to people. That's not very daughterly of you. I just wanted to understand why the photos were different, why you didn't remember things. Jessica's smile turned cold. Because we're not your family, Madison. We never were. The air felt razor thin. Then why bring me back? I whispered. Robert's gaze hardened. Because your father hid something valuable, something you might have. My fingers tightened around the diary. I don't know what you mean. Helen's tone sharpened. Don't lie. We gave you a chance to live peacefully here. All you had to do was hand over the drive. Or what? Or you disappear, like the others. The threat was clear. My blood ran cold. A sharp knock interrupted the tension. 3 heavy raps at the front door. Robert motioned for Jessica to answer it. She hesitated, then walked over. As the door swung open, Agent Price burst in, weapon drawn. FBI! Everyone stay seated! Chaos erupted. Robert lunged for me. Helen grabbed a kitchen knife. Jessica screamed. Ryan and 2 agents stormed in behind Price, subduing Robert and Helen before they could react further. I stood, heart racing as handcuffs clicked into place. Madison, are you hurt? Price asked. I shook my head. I have the USB. Good, you just saved lives tonight. As the Grants and Jessica were led out in cuffs, Helen glared back at me. You could have had a family again. I met her eyes, voice steady. I already do. One that tells the truth. Ryan put a protective hand on my shoulder as the imposters disappeared into the night, finally exposed. The nightmare was ending. But the fight wasn't over yet. Agent Price moved quickly. As soon as the imposters were secured, she led me and Ryan outside into the cool night air. Red and blue lights flashed silently from the unmarked FBI vehicles that had converged on the scene. You did well, Madison, Price said firmly. But we have to move fast. That USB drive might be more dangerous than we thought. What do you mean? I asked. She held out her hand. I passed her the diary with the hidden USB. Our tech team will analyze it immediately. If it contains what we suspect, records of Grant's financial crimes, connections to organized crime, it could make you a target beyond just the Grants. Ryan frowned. But they're in custody now. Price nodded grimly. Yes, but criminals like David Grant don't work alone. He has allies. We need to assume someone else knows Madison has the drive. I felt a chill despite the warm night. So, what now? I asked. We take you both to a secure location. While our cyber team extracts the data, we prepare for possible retaliation. By dawn, Ryan and I were in a safe house outside Portland. The house was plain but fortified. No windows on the ground floor, reinforced doors, and an FBI team stationed inside and out. Agent Price's cyber unit arrived with equipment and immediately began working on the USB. Hours crawled by. I sat on the couch staring at my hands while Ryan paced. Finally, Price returned. She looked more serious than ever. The USB contained more than we hoped and more than we feared. She handed me a tablet showing pages of spreadsheets, wire transfers, offshore accounts. These are payment records, not just financial crimes. Bribes, payoffs to officials, and… She tapped another folder. Names. A list of people who facilitated or covered up the grant's operations. My stomach twisted as I read some of the names. Business people, lawyers, even a few local politicians. Ryan swore under his breath. This is huge. Price nodded. Which is why it's dangerous. The grants were just part of a larger network. Taking them down won't be enough. I felt the weight of the diary in my lap. So, what's the next step? We go public, but carefully. That evening, Price outlined the plan. The Grants and Jessica will remain in custody. We'll offer them plea deals in exchange for testimony against the larger network. Meanwhile, Madison, you'll help us build a timeline of everything you've discovered, from the altered photos to the property records. Ryan and I spent hours compiling documents, emails, and screenshots. Every piece of evidence was cataloged. The FBI arranged for me to give a sealed statement. I'd testify anonymously if the case went to court. But as night fell, Price returned with bad news. There's been a breach. Someone leaked that Madison's back in town. My blood froze. Ryan grabbed his phone. We need to move again. Price shook her head. We'll increase security here. Moving now might expose you further. She paused. And there's something else. She handed me a burner phone. On the screen was a text message from an unknown number. Return the drive or face consequences. Last warning. They know we have it, Ryan muttered. Price locked eyes with me. We stay the course. You've come too far to back down now. The next morning, Price's team traced the threatening message to a prepaid phone purchased near Pinebrook. Surveillance footage showed a man in a baseball cap, face obscured. We think it's one of Grant's associates, Price explained. But we don't have a positive ID yet. Tension mounted. Ryan and I weren't allowed outside without escorts. I felt like a prisoner in my own country, but I refused to give up. This network destroyed my family, I told Price. If we can stop them, we will. She nodded. That's exactly what we intend to do. 3 days later, a breakthrough came. Price's cyber team decrypted an encrypted folder on the USB. Inside were emails between David Grant and his higher-ups, people coordinating fraud, threats, and even violent acts. One email chilled me to the core. Target's daughter identified. Madison Clark. Neutralize if necessary. Ryan clenched his fists. They planned to kill you. Price's jaw tightened. We have enough to make multiple arrests, but it will require precise timing. That night, the FBI raided properties across 3 states. Dozens of suspects were detained. Accounts were frozen. But as Price had warned, the network was vast. Some slipped through the cracks. Which was why, the next day, Price delivered more difficult news. Madison, you'll need to testify publicly. Your statement has become too central to remain anonymous. Fear surged inside me. They'll come after me! We'll protect you. You'll be placed under federal protection until the trial concludes. Ryan grabbed my hand. We'll get through this. I took a deep breath. Okay, let's finish what we started. Over the next week, the FBI prepared for the preliminary hearing. I met with prosecutors, reviewed the evidence, practiced my testimony. And every night, Ryan reminded me why we were fighting. Your family wanted you safe, he said. They'd be proud you're standing up to these people. Finally, the day arrived. As I entered the courthouse under heavy security, I felt the weight of my parents' absence more than ever, but I also felt their strength. I wasn't just Madison Clark, daughter of Robert and Helen Clark. I was the woman determined to expose the truth they died protecting. The battle wasn't over, but I was ready for the next round. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The federal seal loomed behind the judge's bench. Rows of seats were filled with reporters, law students, and a few family members of other victims. But none of my real family remained. Just Ryan sitting in the front row, his eyes steady and reassuring. Agent Price sat nearby, flanked by federal marshals. Every corner of the room seemed lined with security. I could feel their eyes on me. I had rehearsed this moment for weeks. Yet, as the judge called the case to order, my breath still hitched. "The United States versus David Grant and affiliates," the clerk announced. David Grant sat at the defense table, calm, wearing a tailored gray suit. He looked nothing like the man who had threatened me from my own childhood home. Jessica sat 2 seats down, avoiding my gaze. My name was called. I rose, walked to the stand, and took the oath. My hands trembled only slightly as I placed them on the Bible. "State your name for the record." "Madison Clark." The prosecutor, Mr. Eldridge, began with gentle questions. My background, my relationship to the Clarks, my real family, the events leading up to my return to Pinebrook. Every answer felt like peeling off another layer of fear. Then came the difficult part. "Ms. Clark, can you describe the moment you realized the individuals posing as your family were imposters?" I nodded slowly. It was the small things first. My sister called me by a nickname she never used. Family photos had been altered. Memories they should have shared. They didn't remember them. "What did you do next?" "I investigated. I found property records under a different name. I contacted law enforcement. And eventually, I discovered a USB drive my father had hidden before he disappeared." Eldridge held up the drive in an evidence bag. "Is this the USB?" "Yes." "What did it contain?" "Financial records, bribes, payoffs, names of co-conspirators, plans to eliminate witnesses, including me." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge called for order. Eldridge continued. "And what happened when you confronted the imposters?" "They admitted it. They said if I didn't cooperate, I would disappear like the others." Silence fell heavy. "Thank you, Ms. Clark." The defense attorney stood, a tall man with sharp eyes named Mr. Bennett. "Ms. Clark, you've been through a traumatic experience. Isn't it possible your memories are unreliable?" "No." "You were estranged from your family for a decade. How can you be certain about past events?" "I kept journals, photos. I have consistent records of my family's history." Bennett paced. "You claim the defendants impersonated your family, yet you accepted their invitation, stayed in their home, ate their food." "I was manipulated. I wanted to believe they were my family." "Or perhaps you willingly participated in their activities." My stomach twisted. "Absolutely not." Bennett smirked. "Isn't it convenient that you emerged as the sole person with access to valuable evidence?" Before I could answer, Eldridge objected. "Argumentative." "Sustained," the judge ruled. Bennett tried a new tactic. "Ms. Clark, isn't it true you stand to receive restitution if the defendants are convicted?" "Yes." "But that's not why I came forward. I want justice, for my family, for the others they hurt." Bennett raised an eyebrow. "No further questions." I exhaled slowly as I stepped down from the stand. Over the next hours, Agent Price and the cyber forensic team testified. They confirmed the authenticity of the USB drive's contents. Financial experts traced the money laundering schemes. Several co-conspirators arrested in the raids agreed to testify in exchange for reduced sentences. The net tightened around David Grant and his network. Finally, Jessica was called to the stand. She looked fragile, eyes hollow. When asked if she wished to testify or invoke the Fifth Amendment, she surprised everyone. "I'll testify." Her voice trembled. "I never wanted to hurt Madison. I was promised a new life. I didn't know they planned to kill her." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm sorry." The judge nodded gravely. "Let the record reflect the witness's cooperation." Closing arguments were powerful. The prosecution painted a clear picture, an organized effort to assume false identities, manipulate victims, and silence anyone who threatened exposure. The defense tried to cast doubt, but the evidence was overwhelming. When the jury retired to deliberate, hours felt like days. Ryan squeezed my hand. "No matter what, you did the right thing." I nodded, but the waiting gnawed at my nerves. Finally, the jury returned. The foreman rose. "We find the defendants guilty on all counts." A collective exhale swept the courtroom. David Grant remained expressionless. Jessica wept softly. Other co-defendants slumped in their chairs. Justice had spoken. As the courtroom emptied, Agent Price approached me. "You were brave, Madison. Few people could have done what you did." I glanced at Ryan, then back at her. I wasn't alone. Price smiled faintly. "Your real family would be proud." Outside, the morning sun bathed the courthouse steps in light. Reporters gathered, but marshals kept them at bay. I turned to Ryan. "It's over." He nodded. "Almost. Now, it's time to rebuild." And for the first time in years, I felt the future open wide before me. But the fight wasn't quite over. 3 days after the verdict, I remained under federal protection. The FBI had moved Ryan and me to a temporary residence while the remaining arrests were carried out. Every time I glanced out the window, my stomach tightened. The courtroom victory had been public, which meant anyone still loyal to the network knew exactly who had brought them down. Agent Price met us early that morning. She didn't waste time. "We intercepted chatter. Someone's still coming after you. We believe a contract has been placed on your life." Ryan's jaw clenched. "Even after the conviction?" "Especially after the conviction." Price's expression was grim. "Some of these criminals have nothing left to lose. We've frozen their assets, destroyed their alliances, but desperate people are dangerous." I took a deep breath. "So what now?" "We relocate you. Permanently. You'll be given a new identity, new location, full federal witness protection." I stared at her. "Leave everything behind again?" Price nodded solemnly. "This time, not because you're running, because you won." That evening, as the sun dipped below the Portland skyline, Ryan and I walked together along the safe house's quiet garden path. It might be the last time I'd walk anywhere as Madison Clark. "I thought it was finally over," I whispered. Ryan squeezed my hand. "It will be. We just have to take this one last step." I looked at him. "You don't have to come with me." His gaze didn't waver. "I'm not letting you start over alone." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you." The next morning, the FBI escorted us to a secure facility. New passports, new social security numbers, background stories crafted down to the last detail. For the second time in my life, I was leaving everything familiar behind. But this time, it was my choice. Price met me privately before we left. "One last thing. We found something when we raided the network's financial records." She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo of my real parents. It had been taken secretly at one of their safe houses years ago. "They wanted you to have this. They kept it hidden, even from their handlers." Tears slipped down my cheeks. "Thank you. They were proud of you, Madison. They gave everything to keep you safe. And now you've finished what they started." Our new identities took effect within hours. Ryan became Evan Torres. I became Claire Mitchell. We were flown to a small city across the country. A modest house waited for us. A quiet neighborhood. No ties, no risks. As we unpacked, I found myself placing the photo of my parents on the mantel, not as a relic of fear, but as a reminder of resilience. In the weeks that followed, I started volunteering at a local community center, helping others who'd faced family betrayal, fraud, and rebuilding their lives. One evening, after a support group session, a young woman approached me. "I heard your story," she said softly. "Not the details, but the courage. I'm trying to break free from something similar." I smiled gently. "Then you're stronger than you know." That night, as Ryan and I sat together on the back porch, stars stretched overhead, peaceful, unfamiliar, and yet, finally, safe. "I never thought I'd get to this point," I admitted. "You didn't just get here," Ryan said. "You fought your way here." I nodded, thinking of my family, Agent Price, everyone who had helped me stand when I thought I couldn't. My name might be Claire now, but who I am, that's unshakable. For the first time in years, I breathed without fear. The past hadn't broken me. It had built me. 6 months later, the leaves had turned golden in our new city. Life had fallen into a rhythm, simple, quiet, purposeful. But simplicity didn't mean the past had disappeared. It lingered, a shadow in the corners of my new life, but no longer a threat. Evan, as the world now knew him, managed a local mechanic shop. At first, he struggled with the new name, the new background story. Evan Torres, born in Albuquerque, raised in Sacramento. The lie tasted foreign, but over time, it became second nature. I continued volunteering at the community center and had started training as a counselor for victims of fraud and identity crimes. Each session helped me heal in ways therapy never could. I wasn't just sharing wisdom, I was building it piece by piece. The FBI had maintained discreet contact. Agent Price, now more a friend than an agent, kept me updated from time to time. She reported that the criminal network's higher-ups had been sentenced to lengthy prison terms. David Grant would never see freedom again. Jessica received a reduced sentence for her cooperation and was now in a rehabilitation program working toward a future that didn't involve deception. Most of the network's assets were liquidated to compensate the victims, including, eventually, me. But I declined the restitution. "I have enough," I told Price during our last call. "Others lost more." Price's voice was warm. "Your parents would be proud. You've honored their legacy." At first, adjusting to a new identity was disorienting. Claire Mitchell. I practiced the name in the mirror each morning. I signed it on forms. I introduced myself at the community center. But every time I said it, I felt a small pulse of strength. Claire wasn't a mask. Claire was freedom. One crisp Saturday morning, I stood before a small group at the community center. Faces filled with quiet hope. Some new to the program, some returning. People who had faced fraud, identity theft, betrayal from people they had trusted. "My name is Claire Mitchell," I began. "But for most of my life, I was someone else. Someone who trusted people who didn't deserve it. Someone who thought family meant unconditional love, even when it hurt." Heads nodded. I learned the hard way that not everyone who claims to love you actually protects you. Some people use love as a leash, a disguise. The room stayed silent, attentive. But betrayal doesn't define us. Survival does. Growth does. Choosing truth, even when it's painful, that's what sets us free. A young man raised his hand. "How do you stop the fear? The fear they'll come back?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "You don't stop it. You learn to live louder than it. You build a life so strong, so rooted in truth, that fear can't uproot you again." After the session, Evan met me at the coffee shop across the street. He brought me a latte and a cinnamon roll, our new Saturday ritual. "You always say the perfect thing," he said, handing me the coffee. "Because I'm speaking to who I used to be," he smiled, "and who you've become." That afternoon, Evan and I went grocery shopping. Simple, ordinary things felt like milestones. No looking over our shoulders, no burner phones, just the sound of the cart's wheels over the linoleum and quiet laughter. But as we exited the store, a man brushed past me. His face was unfamiliar, but the look in his eyes wasn't. Recognition. Hesitation. My breath caught. Evan noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" That man. He knew me. Or thought he did. Evan scanned the parking lot. The man had disappeared into the crowd. We reported the encounter to Agent Price that evening. "I'll increase surveillance around the community center and Evan's shop," she assured us. "But it might have just been coincidence." I nodded, but my instincts told me otherwise. The past never fully vanished. It waited for cracks to slip through. 2 weeks later, the man returned. This time, he showed up at the community center, asking questions about me. The receptionist flagged it immediately. Price's team apprehended him before he could get close. He wasn't part of Grant's network. He was a private investigator hired by a tabloid, hoping to expose people in witness protection. The FBI acted swiftly. Legal action was taken against the investigator and the publication. "You did everything right," Price assured me. "Your safety protocols worked." But the incident reminded me that peace wasn't passive. It required vigilance. Months passed. Winter came and went. Spring breathed new life into the city. At the community center, I helped launch a new program, Second Chances, offering support and job training for people rebuilding after fraud or family betrayal. One of the first participants, a woman named Lila, reminded me of myself. She had trusted her brother with everything: finances, legal matters, even the care of her aging parents. He had embezzled their savings and left her burdened with debt. "I feel stupid," she confided during our first session. "How could I not see it?" I smiled gently. "You weren't stupid. You were loving, and you can still be loving, but now you'll also be prepared." Week by week, Lila regained her confidence. She secured a part-time job, opened her own bank account, and began the long journey of emotional healing. Watching her progress was like witnessing my own transformation mirrored back at me. That summer, Evan and I adopted a rescue dog, a golden retriever, like Buddy. We named him Phoenix. "New beginnings," Evan said with a grin. Phoenix became our guardian, our companion, and a symbol of resilience. One evening, as Evan closed the shop and I wrapped up a session at the center, we met at a small park overlooking the city skyline. As we sat on a bench beneath the stars, Evan turned to me. "I think we should consider making this permanent." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "Our names, our life. We've been living as if it's temporary, but maybe it's time to stop thinking like that." The following week, I returned to the community center for what had become my most meaningful routine, helping others rebuild after betrayal. The room felt fuller than usual, not because of the number of people, but because of the stories, the weight of pasts being rewritten into futures. I opened the session with a quiet pause. "My name is Claire Mitchell," I began. But before I was Claire, I lived another life. A life where I mistook silence for peace. Where I thought family was a bond no one could break, even when it was used against me. Several heads nodded. Their eyes carried the weight of similar stories. "I want to tell you something I learned the hard way." I held up the photo of my real parents. "Your worth isn't tied to who claims you. Not everyone who shares your blood shares your values." I paused, letting the words settle. "You have the right to walk away. You have the right to protect your peace. And you have the right to rebuild, not out of fear, but out of hope." One woman whispered, "But how do you start over?" "You choose truth," I said softly, "even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs you everything familiar, because peace built on lies will always collapse." The room was silent, not with defeat, but with understanding. After the session, Evan met me at the coffee shop across the street. He handed me a latte and a cinnamon roll, our Saturday ritual. "You always say exactly what they need to hear," he said, "because I'm speaking to who I used to be." "And who you've become," I smiled, "and who I'll keep becoming." That afternoon, while Evan worked at the shop, I walked Phoenix along the Riverside Trail. The water sparkled under the sun. Children played on the grass. Life unfolded in the most ordinary, beautiful ways. An older woman sitting on a bench nodded to me. "That's a strong-looking dog you have." "He's been through a lot, like me." She smiled knowingly. "Then he's in the right hands." I continued walking, the breeze warm against my face. For the first time in years, the future wasn't a distant, fragile hope. It was here, now, built on choices made in the face of fear and forged by resilience. That night, Evan and I sat beneath the stars, Phoenix at our feet. "I've been thinking about something," Evan said. I turned to him. "We've spent so long surviving. Maybe it's time we started living for more than just getting by." "What do you have in mind?" He smiled. "Starting our own shop, a real family business, one built on honesty, community, and a future we create together." Tears pricked my eyes. "Yes, let's do it." If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. This wasn't just a story about betrayal. It was a story about reclaiming identity, about refusing to be defined by the worst things people did to me. If you're listening and facing your own impossible choices, remember this. You are not what they say you are. You are who you decide to become. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe them your loyalty when they've used love as a leash. You owe yourself peace, and it's never too late to claim it. Thank you for spending your time with me. If this story resonated with you, please share it. You never know who might need to hear these words today. And if you want to hear more stories of survival, strength, and truth, follow the channel and turn on notifications. The next chapter could be yours.